Hello and welcome to this very special global broadcast. I'm Anusha Soni. We get you all the big stories from across the world, and this one is certainly making headlines. At a time when Twitter is undergoing big changes under Elon Musk, Meta launched Threads in 100 countries on Thursday as the Twitter rival. In just over 24 hours since the application was rolled out, there are around 50 million users. Mr. Beast, a renowned YouTuber and social media personality, has become the first individual to amass over 1 million followers on Threads. On Wednesday, Alex Spiro, an outside lawyer for Twitter, sent Meta a letter that accused the company of trade secret theft through hiring of former Twitter employees. It also alleged that Meta had engaged in systemic, willful and unlawful misappropriation of Twitter's trade secrets and other intellectual property. To this, Meta has claimed that no one in the engineering team at Threads is a former Twitter employee. Meanwhile, Twitter owner Musk has said, and I'm quoting, "Competition is fine, cheating is not," unquote. This is a response to a tweet citing the news. A special report.
Meta's new social media platform has been up for just a matter of hours. But the company says Threads has gone viral with tens of millions of sign-ups, and now it's riled up rival service Twitter as well. Elon Musk's platform has threatened to sue the Facebook owner after Threads' launch. That's according to a letter seen by Twitter's lawyer Alex Spiro to Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, first reported by news site Semaphore. The letter accuses Meta of hiring former Twitter employees who, quote, had and continue to have access to Twitter's trade secrets and other highly confidential information. A Reuters source with knowledge of the letter confirmed its contents on Thursday. Spiro did not respond to a Reuters request for comment. But responding to the letter in a post on, of course, Threads, Meta spokesperson Andy Stone said, quote, "No one on the Threads engineering team is a former Twitter employee. That's just not a thing." A former senior Twitter employee told Reuters they were not aware of any former staffers working on Threads, nor any senior personnel who landed at Meta at all. In a response to a tweet citing the news, Twitter owner Elon Musk said, quote, "Competition is fine, cheating is not." Threads has racked up more than 30 million sign-ups within about 18 hours of its launch. It's also emerged as the first real threat to Musk's Twitter, partly as it's able to take advantage of billions of Instagram users. Ramesh Srinivasan is a professor of information studies at UCLA.
That's quite intelligent because basically the networks we already have and those we already follow or engage with on a platform like Instagram can be quickly, brought into bear rather than having to create a so-called ecosystem of users from the start.
Numerous competitors to Twitter have sprung up in the last year. That's followed Musk's $44 billion purchase of the social media platform, which was followed by a series of chaotic decisions. Those have alienated both users and advertisers. Musk's latest move involved limiting the number of tweets users can read per day. So Threads' timing was uncanny, says Ben Zhao from the University of Chicago.
I'm sure they've been working on it for quite some time, but this was perfect timing with just the latest sort of little fiasco on Twitter with Musk rate limiting users and all that stuff.
Analysts also say that Meta Platforms is well placed for success with Threads because of its advertising strength. Zuckerberg, however, has said that monetization won't be considered for the platform until it's well on its way to 1 billion users.
Competition is fine, cheating is not. And it looks like that this lawsuit was almost coming. To get you more perspective on this big story, we have Mr. Jajit Bhattacharya, who's the president at the Center for Digital Economy and Policy Research. Mr. Bhattacharya, good afternoon. Thank you so much for speaking with us on the global broadcast. I believe as I observed this story that this lawsuit, one could see it coming. It was in a certain sense inevitable that one company would do something against the other.
So I was saying that we had seen such intellectual property-based wars coming up earlier. We had the classic Apple versus Samsung war, which basically had the issue that Apple said anything which is flat with corners which are rounded is an Apple device and cannot be infringed by anyone else. So there are very what we call as low level intellectual properties which go under the bar, and then there are corporations who leverage that to basically slow down competition. And clearly, as you mentioned, this was coming. This was one of the things that any company would do in a capitalistic world. And I think best it's going to do is slow down Meta, if at all. Because clearly what has been published till now, we don't see any details coming out. So simply alleging that former employees have joined the Threads team, which anyways the Threads team has very vociferously denied.
Yes.
And so has other ex-employees of Twitter who have vociferously denied that none of them have been part of Threads, leave alone the Threads engineering team, which is what basically is supposed to build the system.
Right.
And therefore, with that background, it seems to be a very weak kind of an allegation as of now.
To you, it seems like a weak kind of an allegation, and I believe any court of law is going to take a final call on that matter. But you spoke of the classic corporate wars that we have seen in the past as well. Intellectual property these days is a hotly contested subject in different spheres, especially in technology. But what is the direction and way you see it going? What will be the next plausible step for the company?
So, as you rightly said, in terms of Twitter versus Threads, it's going to go the legal way. There will be a lot of posturing and bluffing that will happen on both sides because that's how the law firms operate. Their objective is more to ensure that there is a competitive advantage. Now, fortunately, the US courts do not have something that the Indian courts have, which is a stay order. Because if there is a stay order, then that will be the end of Threads. And you know, the stay order can be for a sine die period. And so, fortunately, I don't see it heading that way. Right. And what we will essentially see is a few barbs being thrown at Meta. And I think that'll more be advantageous to Meta because people would like to, side with the underdog, with the entity which is a victim. So I believe they will end up getting more users just as a protest of what Twitter is doing to Threads.
Do you see Threads stopping anytime soon? I mean, you argue that the grounds for this lawsuit, they don't seem very strong to you. But what the company would want is some kind of injunction against Threads. Do you see that happening?
So it depends on the details.
Yes.
We have not received any specificity from Twitter on what are the grounds on which it says that Meta has infringed on its intellectual property rights. Because clearly Meta's platform is not the first one. The Indian startup Coup did pretty much the same thing. So did Mastodon and a few other entities. If Twitter was so sensitive to its intellectual property, why didn't they go after the rest of them? So clearly, it's not driven just by plain intellectual property infringement, as is mentioned in the tweet by Elon Musk that cheating is not correct. But is it really cheating is a key question. What information is there in Twitter in terms of how it operates is public information. It's not really an intellectual property in that sense. It doesn't really cross the bar in terms of intellectual property. It's pretty similar to having the patent that any phone which is flat and has got rounded corners is a patent. These are very low level bars which misuse the entire intellectual property right regime.